Happy Friday, fifth graders. Today we are continuing with our data analysis by analyzing double bar graphs and line graphs and applying our understanding of whole numbers, fractions, and decimals to do so. So once again, we're going to look at data in graphs. We're going to start with a double bar graph. Double bar graphs are used to compare two different sets of data. So you might be pretty used to seeing single bar graphs, and that's what you see down here. Here we have one graph that has single bars that are showing us the favorite yogurt flavors in a classroom. And then we have another bar graph here that shows us the favorite yogurt flavors in a different classroom. If we wanted to more easily compare these two sets of data, we could put them in a double bar graph. That's what we have here. Now we can compare class 5A and class 5B more easily. Here's that picture just a little bit larger. We're going to go over the different important areas in a double bar graph that we need to pay attention to when we are analyzing it. So in a double bar graph, there's always going to be a title. The title is going to tell us what are we supposed to be seeing in this graph. In this graph, we're seeing the favorite yogurt flavors. Then also in our graph, we're going to have an x-axis label. Remember, our x-axis is the horizontal axis of our graph. And right here, it's telling us along the bottom of your graph, you're going to see the different types of yogurt flavors: vanilla, blueberry, peach, and strawberry. We're also going to have a y-axis label. The y-axis label in this case is showing us the number of students. So when I put these two things together, it'll tell me the number of students that like each yogurt flavor. Because it's a double bar graph, it's always very important to look for the key as well. Sometimes the key is called a legend. In this case, it's showing us that the green bars represent class 5A and the yellow bars represent class 5B. It's always really, really important to look for that key because you need to know, what do these different bars represent? What do they stand for? You're also going to see a scale. So on the side over here, the scale is showing us we're going from what number to what number. What's our lowest option and our highest? So this is saying the number of kids in these two fifth grade classes that have favorite yogurt flavors could be anywhere from 0 to up to 18. So the scale right here shows us the lowest and the highest, and we can see our numbers, but then it's also really important to look at what are we going by over here. So we're looking at the intervals. So when I look over here and I look at my numbers, I can see that it's counting by twos. The numbers that I'm seeing and the bars that go, or the lines that go all the way across, are in intervals of 2. I can also see that there are little hash marks between each 2, which must represent 1. It's really important to look at the scale and the intervals so that you can know exactly how many each bar represents. So, for example, if I said, how many students in class 5A like vanilla the most, you would come to your x-axis label and go to vanilla, and you would know that green is 5A, and then you would come over to the green bar, take it all the way to top, and see what it says. Well, if I go over to my y-axis, it is right between that 8 and the 10. So it means 9 students. Then you also might get questions like, how many more kids in class 5A like blueberry yogurt than kids in class 5B? That's what double bar graphs are really good for. We can compare those two classes. So I could find how many in class 5A like blueberry, 16, and subtract how many in class 5B like blueberry, 12. So I could say 4 more kids in class 5A like blueberry yogurt. The other kind of graph we're going to look at are line graphs. Line graphs are usually used to show how data changes over time. Just like bar graphs, they are going to have a title. So this graph is telling us the temperature at a nature park. And when I look at the x-axis, it's going to tell me the temperature over time. In this case, it's going from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on a day. The y-axis is telling us the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. The scale here goes all the way from 0 to 92. What we need to focus on in this one is these little 2 diagonal hash marks, because they are showing us that in this line graph, they have skipped a lot of numbers because the range of our data here goes from 80 to 90. So they did not want to have numbers all the way from 0, counting by 2s, because that is our interval. If we counted by 2s from 0 all the way up to 90, this line graph would have had to be really, really large. So instead, they've said, we're not going to get anything below 74. So let's cut those ones off and just let you know that we took those numbers out of this line graph. Again, the intervals here we can see are going by 2s, 74, 76, 78, 80. And then again, halfway between those intervals, we're going to have then 1. So if I were to ask you, what was the temperature at the nature park at 1 p.m., you could come to your x-axis, find 1 p.m. right here, and follow it up to the dot, and then over and see that it was 88 degrees. Or I could say to you, at what time did the temperature start decreasing? Well, decreasing means going down. So I'm going to find the highest point in my graph and then see when it starts going down. Well, that's right here. So the temperature started decreasing in the nature park after 2 p.m. Or I could say, at what time was it the coldest in the nature park? And then I would look for which point on our graph is the lowest. Right here, 9 a.m., it was only 80 degrees. So today, you're going to use bar graphs and line graphs to answer questions and see which tables you could use to have made graphs as well. So you're going to see, you're going to need to make sure that you are very carefully looking at the graphs in order to answer questions about double bar graphs and line graphs. In this question, you're going to be asked to use what we learned yesterday in finding the median and range and mean using the bar graph. And then in your very last one today, you're going to be asked to create your own bar graph. It is a single bar graph, so it's a little bit simpler, but you're going to use the information you see right here to make sure that you include your own title and x-axis information and y-axis information. I have already given you the scales and the interval, the scale and the intervals. And then you're going to need to come down and drag these bars up to the correct number. What I mean by that is that each of these little rectangles down here, you can move. So for example, if on Sunday it was saying it was 1 inch high, you would bring that up to about 1 inch. Or you would bring that bar up to 1 centimeter. You would bring that bar up to 1 centimeter. And then if on another day it was all the way up to 10 centimeters, then you would bring that one up to 10 centimeters. You're going to make your own bar graph. And then when you are done, you will submit your slides on Schoology.